This week, New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announced she is stepping down after a history-making career. She quickly became a global icon, but had recently become increasingly unpopular with voters at home. Well, joining me now is founder of Small Business Women Australia, Amanda Rose. Nice to see you in the flesh.
I know, in person.
There you go. So let's talk about Jacinda Ardern in
Yes.
terms of a leader, because it's divisive in terms of if people liked her or hated her, but in terms of a female leader, she was there for, 5.5 years?
Yes.
Baby, she had a baby, she's now 4. Incredible, whether you like her or not.
Exactly, and that's a good point. Whether you like her or not, she was different. It was a woman, someone who had a child, and that is what we need. So we need, that saying, you can't be what you can't see. Mm-hmm. So young girls can think, oh, actually, I can still have a family and be a leader of a country. And it was interesting because the BBC came out with a headline saying, can women really have it all? And they instantly retracted it because of backlash. And I'm thinking, we still have that attitude as a woman that she cannot be in a serious role if she has children or if she has another life. So I think people are trying to say she's leaving because she's not coping. Maybe she actually has a career plan that's above and beyond doing what she was doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And what is that other saying? Give a busy person
things to do, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's usually most women, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's why it's so effective.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Well, Chris Hipkins looks like he's going to be the front runner, so a male. But what are your thoughts on?
Look, we don't hate the men, right? Really, there's two issues here. It's the party politics, so it's based on what you stand for with your party, and then when it comes to the gender, that's just across all parties. That just should be that. Every single party should have equal representation, because we have 50% of women in the country, then they need 50% representation in Parliament.
What are your thoughts on, as Jacinda said, she's got no more in the tank, in terms of leaving on a high note as a leader or just as anybody? Do you think that's a smart move?
It is smart, and I actually have to say this, but most men would hang on to death and get toppled by someone, which is, there's a history of that in Parliament. But yeah, so she just said, no, I don't want to, sacrifice her mental health and her physical health potentially, just to hold on to a role because everyone expects her to have it. And it's interesting because it is disappointing that a woman is stepping down in general, just for whatever reason, because in Western Sydney, with the state election coming, 90% of women that we have surveyed actually said they want more women in politics. So this is actually a hot topic.
Well, let's get on to the New South Wales state election, because it's just around the corner, 25th of March. So, Western Sydney is a real focus, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting because you can always tell when it's an election, because all of a sudden, I get phone calls and everyone's interested in Western Sydney. But what we need to do is not just look at the promises that are being made. We need to really look at what's important to you as a family, as a businesswoman, as a person, and say, who is going to represent me? And not just the party as well. Yes, you have party policies, but there are MPs out there that are so dedicated, they will defend their electorate, even within their own party, if they're in against them. And that's what you want. You want people that care about you as an individual and the cost of living. But again, 90% of women, over 1,000 women were surveyed, and 90% want to see more women. So I'm curious to see how the two major parties stack up, and also some independents. I know that there's more demand for independents now, especially after the federal election. So I think that might actually force the major parties to try and genuinely care about the people in Western Sydney.
Yeah, very interesting. And we know through COVID as well that a lot of people in Western Sydney were not happy.
Well, they weren't, because they were targeted, and they were pretty much, it was a reflection of what people really did think of Western Sydney, which I always advocate for, the stigma of Western Sydney, that, we don't need you, you're working class, you're, not as educated, whatever it is that they have an attitude for. And then they shut them down, lock them down, and realise, oh, hang on a minute, we need you to function. And all of a sudden it's, kind of backtracking, but they won't forget that. People don't forget, not just the government that was in, but the government and the representation of the opposition that didn't stand up and defend them either.
I've said this before, but any thoughts of you getting into politics?
Never say never.
Oh, watch this space. Another woman.
Exactly.
Got to get those percentages up. Now, Australia Day, it's a very controversial subject. The voice to Parliament, obviously, this year is going to be dominating the headlines and so forth. But what are your thoughts on, white-collar workplaces, I should say, leading some of the major firms, public holidays in general? I mean, this is just something that is really talked about.
Yeah, it's interesting. So places like PwC and Deloitte are allowing their employees to not celebrate it on that day, and they can have their public holiday another day, and that's perfectly fine. I don't see a problem with that. I believe that people have every right to choose, right? So I think it also needs to be applied across all public holidays. There are plenty of people that don't celebrate Christmas and Easter, so why can't they have those public holidays at a different time of the year? So I just think it should be flexible for all employers to say, right, you don't want to celebrate on that day for whatever reason. I also don't think people need to be justifying why they do and don't want to celebrate it. It is a personal choice. And to say, here's your 5 or so public holidays in a year, pick when you want them.
Well, I mean, jobs like this where you do work on public holidays, but what about if you are getting more money, so time and a half or double time and so forth?
Well, you should still get that money because it's still a public holiday, but it actually would help with, the staff shortages people have during this time with small business. I actually think this could be positive.
Yeah.
So,
nice idea.
I know. Well, let's see if it works.
And what about LinkedIn jobs? Men are dominating those?
Yeah, it's interesting. So LinkedIn's come out with, with the top dominating jobs. And of course, it's IT, it's tech, it's cybersecurity. And what's interesting is they say, men are dominating these roles. And we have these male dominating roles and female. And I don't like that term really. The reality is they're money-making roles, right? They make a lot of money and that's why the men go for them. So saying it's a male-dominated industry or role is giving the impression to young girls that women can't do it. So if we just say, hang on a minute, here is a type of industry and roles that are available, follow the money, good money in this type of industry. This is what you can do, pathways to get there. But if we take out the male-female equation, then young girls and women would say, oh, I can do that. Instead of saying, oh, look, it's a male-dominated industry. Oh, no, I don't want that. So, no, I think it's sending that message that women or girls can't do it. Absolutely they can.
Are we seeing big change, or is it slow, or are we getting there?
It's getting there. So I know, at Western Sydney, when we do Future is Bright programs for high school girls in aviation, STEM and trades, and we are seeing the change. And the more we do it, the more they talk about it, then their friends want to do it. And parents say, can my girl, be in that? And we're like, absolutely. And we're seeing large companies like, Endeavour Energy and tech companies and places like KPMG saying, actively engaging with universities to make sure they're not scared off by the narrative that's out there and they're genuinely interested. So it is slowly happening.
Good to see. You do a great job doing it. Amanda Rose, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see you.